A very good evening to you. I am Ryan Broom with the Friday, March 2nd edition of the CBC Evening News. Tonight, our top story comes from the Lower House, which is set to be dissolved next Tuesday, with the spotlight falling on the state-owned Transport Board.
So we have, Mr. Chairman,
board buses break down on a daily basis. This revelation from Transport and Works Minister Michael Lashley. He was speaking in Parliament on a resolution to provide $5 million for the Transport Board to pay its creditors. Minister Lashley says the root cause of the problem is that many of the buses are old.
So we have, Mr. Chairman, 77 buses, 21 years old, 101 buses, 18 years, 29 buses, 14 years old, and 65 buses, 12 years old. I say that, Mr. Chairman, because certainly we have not purchased buses since 2006. And given the ages of these buses, and given the fact, Mr. Chairman, that the public transport runs to a scheduled service, and they have to be constantly up there servicing those routes, we expect, given the age of these buses, that there will be a need of repairs.
The minister says part of the government's plan to improve efficiency and reduce costs at the Transport Board is to invest in electric buses.
When we did the analysis, if we seek to move 10% of our fleet towards electric vehicles, it will result in $2 million savings in relation to diesel fuel. Imagine, Mr. Chairman, then that you move now to about 50 or 100 buses by using electric buses. Imagine the savings, Mr. Chairman, that we have not only fuel, but also maintenance.
Meanwhile, Minister of Tourism and International Transport, Richard Seeley, agrees there is need for more buses to be added to the fleet of the Transport Board. While acknowledging it's been some time since buses were purchased, Mr. Seeley recognized the efforts to work with the PSV sector through the TASI project.
That was a project that I thought was extremely well, how should I put it, trailblazing. And I understand that the results of the pilot were mixed, but there is a view that it has a future, and I sincerely look forward to seeing that take place.
And Mr. Seeley says that going forward, the Transport Board has to look at the future differently.
The needs of the traveling public are going to be different. The role the Transport Board has to play. It was established, as we all know, the private operators and so on, to bring some more, you know, ease of operation, relying on Rockland and all those private people providing public transportation, and all the laudable reasons why it had to be established. But the needs back then cannot be the needs now.
And Minister of Housing, Denis Kalman, agrees the Transport Board is in need of restructuring. He, however, says the previous government failed to ensure the entity was properly operated, especially in servicing northern Barbados.
Because when one looks to see what is occurring, it does not make sense having 7 or 8 routes leaving Bridgetown, going to the north, and a person in Sunset Crest having to look to see what bus is coming, when clearly there could be a service moving from Bridgetown to Spikestown called the Spikestown service.
Suggestions that Barbados move towards greening its public transportation sector have been welcomed by Minister of Health John Boyce. Mr. Boyce, a former Minister of Transport, sees the move as a progressive step that will reap benefits.
It is useful for our environment, it is useful for our health, and therefore I certainly think it is something which Barbados too must look at. And as the minister said, we need to get some pilots on the ground almost immediately. There are providers out there who are anxious to participate in these kind of programs by the provision of these electric substitute vehicles.
And Minister Boyce also sees maintenance of vehicles as important.
We say the same thing about our public buildings and to some extent some of our private buildings. But we need to understand that there's a percentage of expense which has to be allocated on an annual basis to these kind of maintenance programs. We need to understand that the purchase of spare parts at reasonable rate prices is important to this kind of schedule, and we need to stop, therefore, Mr. Chairman, throwing away useful pieces of equipment.
An appeal tonight to those affected by the South Coast sewage problem to be patient as government implements the solution. It comes from the Minister of Water Resource Management, Dr. David Estwick. He was speaking in Parliament on a resolution for just over $48.5 million to be allocated to the Ministry of Agriculture, for which he also has responsibility. Dr. Estwick used the opportunity to address the sewage overflow issue.
I'm going to say to Barbadians, we understand and we know the challenges that you have had. And I want to say to the businesses on the South Coast and the residents on the South Coast, you know, we appreciate your challenges. We sympathize with you. We have friends and families and people, our residents who own businesses, so we empathize with you. But we want you to understand the magnitude of the problem that we are trying to face. And we are asking you to work with us and do not get caught up in these types of fly-by-night solution of shutting down the whole South Coast. That is not a solution.
Meanwhile, the minister also outlined what is being done to remedy the situation.
The plan is we will divert the influent first. We're going to divert it, we're going to treat it, we're going to screen it, and we are going to put it into 3 or 4 deep injection wells. Those wells are not in a point where there's any threat to your potable water supply. Second to that, they are so deep that there is no reasonable threat, Mr. Chairman, to your marine environment or to your swamp.
In more news from the House of Assembly, Social Care Minister Steve Lockett has dismissed opposition leader Mia Mottley's plan to fix the South Coast. Yesterday, Ms. Mottley said within a week of being elected, the BLP would close down the food businesses that are in the immediately impacted area and roll out a system to pay workers for 4 to 8 weeks, which would supplement the unemployment payments the workers would receive from the National Insurance Scheme. Mr. Lockett said this plan, joined with their promise to repeal the NSRL tax and making tertiary education free, again is unrealistic.
I believe this was all prompted because of Barbados Today, prompted them, driving them to come forward to bring some ideas, put some ideas on the table. Because up to now, the public policy of the Barbados Labour Party going forward as a government in waiting, it has been bereft of any proper ideas. So she's been forced yesterday out of her laziness of ideas, bankruptcy of ideas, to come forward with this foolish plan of sending home public sector workers, private sector workers, and pay them out of the public purse. I've never heard anything like that. If they have no ideas, just shut your mouth.
Well, we take a pause here, but we'll be back with more news after the break. Welcome back. Well, there has been a noticeable decline in the level of respect shown to police officers. This assertion from Director of Public Prosecutions, Donna Bab Agard. She made the point while addressing the newest officers to graduate from the Regional Police Training Center. Or Sharika Griffith has that story.
Police officers today are met with many challenges, including long waits for promotions, inadequate pay, and improper accommodation. In this age of technology, they face increasing scrutiny as their every move is also recorded on cell phones. In the midst of these challenges, Director of Public Prosecutions Dominica Agard says officers are also being shown less respect by criminals.
Criminals today are prepared to protect their drugs and die for it, and also to protect their reputations. As a result, the respect which used to be paid to police officers, even by some of those same criminals, is now a thing of the past.
She made the comments during the 141st Passing Out Parade of the Regional Police Training Center. All 11 recruits who took part in the 7-month course are from the Royal Anguilla Police Force. Anguillan Commissioner of Police Paul Morrison says considering the recent impact of Category 5 Hurricane Irma on the country, police duties could no longer be just about fighting crime.
Our involvement in civil emergencies is fundamental to success. The maintenance of law and order is just one part of that equation. Support to communities, making sure that diverse communities are reached is absolutely crucial to making sure that everybody gets through these very difficult times in one piece.
The award for Best Recruit went to WPC Janelle Brown. Deputy Commandant of the Training Center Rodney Archer expressed confidence that the training would prepare the officers to resist any negative influences. He, however, issued a word of warning.
Let me caution you to be aware of organizational culture. You are in the gullible phase of your policing careers and may easily sway to follow the path of unprofessional and corrupt practices. You are young, intelligent persons. Use that intelligence wisely to the benefit of your organization. I urge you to be thinkers and not followers.
To date, close to 24,000 students have passed through the training center. The next training course has already begun with a complement of 18 Barbadian students. They are set to graduate on April 12th this year. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Sharika. Well, the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association is congratulating the island for its performance in this year's Traveller's Choice Awards. Chief Executive Officer of the BHTA, Rudy Grant, expressed elation about the island capturing more than a dozen awards. He also described the achievement as significant, given the fact that Barbados competed with hotels in countries such as the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico.
I want to congratulate all the hotels which received awards, but particularly those that are members of the BHTA, which represents the vast majority. This demonstrates that our accommodation properties are able to compete with the best globally. We therefore congratulate all who have contributed to the obtaining of these awards and look forward to continually deepening our relationship with our partners and stakeholders to ensure an even better performance next year.
Performing arts students of the Barbados Community College were treated to a masterclass session from one of America's top jazz bands. The New York-based Huntertones are here in Barbados as part of a 4-country tour put on by the U.S. Embassy. They have been in St. Lucia and St. Vincent already and will finish the tour in Antigua. The U.S. Embassy's Deputy Public Affairs Officer, Gaina Davila, told CBC News the Huntertones exemplify the excellence and diversity of American music.
They have traveled throughout the world. They've worked in Togo, they've worked in Egypt, they've worked in Zimbabwe with other musicians, and what they want to do while they're here is really engage with the young musicians here. They appeal to a wide range audience, so whether you're a young musician aspiring to become a professional musician or you just love jazz and you've listened to it your whole life, it's something you can find something here with them.
And Ms. Davila says the masterclass will guide students through the education process that led them to where they are today.
So just as hard as they practice, with their instruments, they studied really hard too. When they were in college, they actually met in college. The band met in college, and so there's a very important role that education has played throughout the band's life. I guess I should say not just life, but throughout their time together, education has played a central role in helping them really become the kind of musicians that they are today, so that they can exemplify that excellence and diversity that I spoke to a little bit earlier.
The Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation is forging deeper ties with the People's Republic of China. A contingent from the Chinese embassy, including Ambassador Yang Zhusheng, was treated to a tour of the CBC by members of senior management. During the tour, Ambassador Xi Zhusheng presented a brand new pair of broadcast links. The equipment will allow the corporation to conduct 2 live broadcasts simultaneously for the first time ever.
We're absolutely grateful. We have a good relationship with the embassy and with the people of China. Several of our staff members have had an opportunity to travel to China and to experience Chinese culture. We have been able to broadcast several of the Chinese documentaries.
And Ambassador Xi Zhusheng praised the work of the CBC and looks forward to further collaboration.
After this morning's tour, I have a strong mind to cooperate with the CBC and the Chinese embassy in Barbados in many areas.
Well, we take another break here, but still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region. Welcome back. Well, topping news from the region tonight, there is concern in Guyana that the rate of violence against children continues to rise, and citizens are being encouraged to play their part in breaking the scourge.
Data and science have revealed that children who are neglected and are victims of child sexual abuse and violence face challenges and developmental delays which cannot be compensated in a lifetime, says UNICEF's Deputy Representative to Guyana, Paolo Marchi.
And often this is going to affect their future, from their capacity of earning, their capacity of being productive members of society, their capacity of get a job, their capacity of being good parents themselves. It is clear that more work needs to be done together in partnership. We all can and have a role to play in preventing and addressing violence against children. We can do it, and we can do it at the condition that we do it all together.
Mr. Marchi addressing the gathering at UNICEF's and the Social Protection Ministry's social meeting of religious organizations at the Umanayana on Wednesday. He reminded religious leaders that they each play a key role in the protection of children and that the role of religion in upholding the tenets of morality and social order in communities can never be undervalued.
You have behind you a religion, a belief. You have a number of followers. People who trust you because you are passing messages, important messages that they believe in. So you have a huge responsibility. You have a trust that comes from your wisdom and comes from the role that you play and you are assigned to play. So I think this is why it's important. You can play a key role in influencing opinion.
The UNICEF's Deputy Representative to Guyana added that every country has to grapple with social and moral ills affecting their population. But here in Guyana, there needs to be more focus and action to address the issue of violence against all children.
Violence against children is a phenomenon that doesn't seem to be decreasing in Guyana as in many other countries. It is a plague of our societies, as deprive our children of their right to live without violence, free from violence.
In St. Lucia, police are investigating the country's second homicide for the year. A 37-year-old Denis resident was gunned down on Wednesday night.
A grief-stricken aunt of the island's latest homicide victim fights back the weight of emotions. According to eyewitnesses, gun-wielding assailants, clad in black, walked up to Elisha Swanson and his sibling and opened the fire sometime after 9 Wednesday night at Austin Hill Denery. Police say law enforcement officers attached to the Ridgeford Police Station received a report of the suspected homicide about 9:20 p.m. on Wednesday, February 28, 2018.
The guy was seated there, and the one that died, he was seated there, and the next brother was seated there. And then we just heard shots. Some people thought it was match bomb. They said it was match bomb. Yeah, and then he's after a while, the other brother run. We didn't even see the dead one because he went over there and he just fell. And then, you know, people just started crying and was in a frenzy because the guy like came, he didn't come in a car, he just came around like somebody that knew around. You understand? That's somebody that grew up with us. I really know him into, you know, like have any beef right now. I, you know, there to judge, but you understand? He's a guy that more like playing football and you check it, he more on himself, by himself, you understand?
According to police, the second victim is currently in stable condition. Kamala Swanson and the deceased nephew had a close bond. She says she last spoke to Elicious on Monday. He was seeking her assistance in completing a transaction at the local credit union.
He tell me when he go there, they ask him if he knows somebody in that a member, so that they could sign that could sign the form for him. I say, well, I'm your aunt. You close to me, I can do it for you. I signed. He said, Auntie, I go in. I say, okay. And that's the last word he shared with me.
Marlene McDonald has been reappointed as a minister in Trinidad and Tobago. This is the third appointment of the Port of Spain South MP as a minister. She will serve as minister in the Ministry of Public Administration and Communications. There she will assist the Prime Minister, who continues to hold the portfolio, which he assumed since the substantive minister, Maxie Cuffey, fell ill a few months ago.
She was first appointed the Minister of Housing but had been removed in March 2016 after becoming the subject of an investigation. The following year, Ms. MacDonald was appointed Minister of Public Utilities from June 30th, 2017, a position she held for just a day. Dr. Rowley advised the President Thursday to appoint her as a minister in the Ministry of Public Administration and Communications, where she will assist the Prime Minister, who continues to hold the portfolio which he assumed since the substantive minister Maxie Cuffey fell ill in September 2017. In making the appointment, the Prime Minister said Ms. MacDonald could make a valuable contribution to the ministry, and he was confident that she would meritoriously perform the duties required as a minister in the ministry. Ms. MacDonald, in accepting the appointment, pledged to dedicate herself to the business of the ministry and said she was committed and motivated to perform. From 2010 to 2015, she served in opposition as the Chief Whip.
Dominica has received a $2 million grant from Japan for disaster response and reduction equipment and to help respond to climate change. The grant was provided through Japan's Social Development Program. Minister of Foreign Affairs Francine Barron says immediately after Hurricane Maria, Japan was among the first to respond to Dominica's appeal for emergency relief supplies, with the country's ambassador expressing concern. She says the grant adds an important dimension to the strong and fruitful relations between Dominica and Japan.
This grant of 220 million yen, or $2 million worth of disaster reduction equipment, goes beyond Japan's initial provision of emergency support. It will strengthen our capacity to pre-position vital pieces of equipment and thus enable us to respond quickly in the event of future disasters. It is well known that over the years, Japan's official development assistance to Dominica has been significant. It has covered technical cooperation, including JICA training provided to Dominican nationals in Japan in a range of subject areas.
Meanwhile, Japan's ambassador to Dominica, Mitsuhiko Okada, signaled his government's commitment to assist developing nations in enhancing their resilience to climate change. Well, a glimpse into the world of sports is just ahead with Damian Best, but first here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Anti-doping rule violations number 5.
Doping is defined as the tampering with any part of the drug testing process. This fact is brought to you compliments the National Anti-Doping Commission.